Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is an accomplished actress of stage and screen, a singer. She does aerial silk fitness and is currently learning the piano.
Yes.
That is true, okay. You may recognize her from her roles in The Ring 2, Final Destination 3, Die Hards 4 and 5, you can see where I'm going with this, Smashed, and of course, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, but I know her best as Ramona Flowers in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Hello, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, one of those movies that I guess people, as far as mainstream goes, wasn't a huge blockbuster, but for people who knew the comic book, like myself, this was like, I can't believe this movie was ever getting made.
Right, that it even exists is kind of an amazing thing. And it's grown so much. It's grown in popularity over the years. Like,
have you been to a Comic-Con lately?
It's been a few years, but I get pictures all the time.
Yeah, people still are dressing up.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love it. And I every year I get more and more people like stopping me and like saying Ramona Flowers. So it's kind of incredible.
Did you read the comic book before you did the movie?
I hadn't heard of the comic before I did the movie, but I signed on to the movie actually like a couple years before we shot it. So the comic was, I think still kind of like catching on at that time. So I was so excited once I read it and just was like so happy to dive in and be a part of it.
Were you reading it right before you started shooting, or did you read it right as you were doing the movies, trying to get a feel for how to do the character?
Before I ever even met with Edgar, like I knew that he wanted, actually we had like a lunch meeting and then he was like, these are the books, I might be doing this movie down the line, it could be cool. This was like 2 years before we even shot it. And then I read them immediately, everyone that was out at that point, and was just like, yes, please, whatever I can do to be in this movie.
You've been in so many movies that had big followings. Obviously, the Ring franchise. You did the remake of The Thing, the Die Hard. It's not even, I was going to say trilogy, but it's 5 movies.
I know.
And with a 6th possible coming out.
Yeah.
You've been lucky enough to been in so many great and beloved franchises. Scott Pilgrim, another one which was just a cult thing that a studio took a chance on, and to this day, whenever it's on like FXX or something like that, I'm like, all right, this is my Sunday. I'm going to sit here and watch the rest of this.
So cool.
You're joining yet another, which looks like to be a franchise for Cloverfield. This movie originally was a script called The Cellar.
Yes.
And then JJ got his hands on it and said, this seems a lot like it ties into what we did with Cloverfield here. I think we can change this a little bit and make there's something bigger and better.
Yeah. I think, what happened is not necessarily that it could tie in and be a sequel to Cloverfield, but that it felt very much like a Bad Robot film of that ilk. It had the same spirit as Cloverfield. And so I think he thought, hey, with like a little retooling, we could really make this something that feels like ours, And I think he just kind of wants to create a world where when you go to see one of these movies that he produces, they feel connected in some spiritual way, in some bigger way.
Yeah, I think JJ's quote was that it's not a sequel per se, but it's definitely a blood relative.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a great, perfect double feature, in that sense.
And it was a little weird, too, because he said that, and he said it wasn't quite the sequel, but, first, we'll back up a little bit.
Yeah.
When the trailer came out, everyone was like, when did they make this? Where the hell was this? Like, nobody knew this movie existed.
Yeah.
Quick trailer. Wow, less than 2 months before this movie is going to come out, which is unheard of, because usually they got to ramp up and do all this marketing and promotion, like you're doing here, interviews and what have you. And they said, nope, we're just going to put it out and do it this kind of bare bones way, which is kind of cool if you're a fan of that kind of genre.
Yeah.
To see it like this way, like it keeps a lot of mystery and suspense and secret, a lot of whatever the secrets are to the movie, kind of keeps it a little close to the chest there, so that you don't really know what's going on. But then they put out one other trailer where I don't know if I'm guessing it's you standing in the field looking at the house. There's a glow behind it. Looks a little Rocky Horror-ish, if you will. But then you hear the sound of the monster from the first movie. So you're like, okay, so maybe the monster is in that movie. I don't know. Or maybe this is where he landed before going into Manhattan or whatever.
Well, I think it's debatable what the sound is, which I won't say, but but I think, even the trailers that give some stuff away when you see the movie, it still is not. You still don't know what's going to happen because the movie is
honestly,
so like.
I haven't seen the movie, but I don't think the trailer's giving anything away other than wow, John Goodman and Mary in this movie, and then the third guy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you think is happening because I have some people who are like, oh, it's giving everything away, and I'm like, no, it's really not. There's so much that happens in the movie, and that's the whole point of the marketing has been like this movie by design is the kind of movie that you just don't want people to know about because it would ruin it. It would ruin the experience. It's not like, oh, it's a rom-com that we kind of know the formula and we know what's going to happen and we see it because we know we're going to feel good or whatever. Like the whole point of this movie is to go on this roller coaster ride where you don't know what's going to happen from scene to scene, from moment to moment, and you want to go in there totally pure, as much as possible.
Also, based on the trailer, one can assume that it's in current time, but you don't know what time period you're in based on the trailer because if it's current time. It has its charm, that bunker where it looks very 1950s,
yes.
Cold War panic fallout shelter. I mean, the way the couch looks, the artwork, the carpeting and stuff like that. It's like, wow, this guy has been planned for a long time to have this place ready to go for whatever he thinks is going to happen happens. So is that a fair assumption? You don't know what time frame that this is happening, or is it in real time?
I think it's fair. I think we can say that it's current time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's you see a car in the film, you see a cell phone in the film, so those are little things that tip you off to that it's happening in current time, but. That's all really specific to the character of Howard that John Goodman plays. His character is so more of another time and he's so kind of stuck in another era that, the set design really reflects that. And it's really kind of creepy, and kind of adds to the tension in a lot of ways.
Does time play a key role in this movie here? Like, even though it could be current time, meaning right now as we speak, but could it be current time in the sense of like we said, is this when around the same time that the other attack was happening in the original Cloverfield?
I think we've been pretty clear in like just the past couple of days in the interviews that we've been doing and saying that it's not connected in a timeline to the other Cloverfield. So just want people to know that going into it, like it's definitely connected in the spiritual way, and we definitely want fans to have a similar experience when they saw that movie as to what they're going to have with this one. But it's not, like a linear sequel, or it's not going to be something where you're going to say, oh, that was happening at the same time. It's like, that happened in whatever year that happened in, and this is happening now.
When you get the role for this, you didn't find out the title of the movie until they told you, because everything was so hush-hush and done in such a rush that you didn't find out the title of the movie until they said, oh, they're releasing the trailer tonight.
Yes.
So when you were shooting the movie, you had no idea that this was anything to do with the spirit of Cloverfield.
I knew that it was in the spirit of Cloverfield in the sense that when I first met on it, that we talked about that. And it was talked about on set, and it was talked about even how it could be connected in a more linear way. Like that was a discussion that was happening around me. But since we didn't follow through on a lot of those more specific things, it wasn't something I was aware that was going to be connected with a title up until, it came out, the trailer came out. So, but now I totally get it. Once it was explained to me, I was like, okay, we just want people to know going into it that this is in the same vein as that and that it's part of this greater world. And I think that once a few more films come out down the line that are part of this world, it's going to make a little more sense.
Right.
Right now, it's like, so like, wait, what is this? What's happening? But I think JJ has this like kind of mastermind idea behind the whole thing that once you know more about that, it really all starts to kind of make more sense.
When was this movie shot?
It was shot, we finished in December of last year, so like about a little under a year and a half ago.
Because I was going to ask how hands-on was JJ, because for the last 3 years he was consumed with Star Wars, and then Star Wars was coming out, so he was constantly in the press for that, and then even when it was out, he was doing all the talk show appearances and the cons and all the specialty stuff that they had to do. So even up to the movie and after the movie, he was still doing Star Wars. Yeah. When did he have time to work on this?
I think he's superhuman is what I have come to conclude, because when I signed on to it, I was like, so cool that he's involved, but obviously he's not going to really have time to be around or really talk to us that much because, he's going to be so bogged down with the other little things, that he's doing. And he was more involved than I could have ever imagined. His presence was felt on set every day. His notes were on every scene, on every, set of dailies. His ideas were coming in every day. if he had a new exciting idea that we all loved and wanted to embrace, it would like go into a scene that day. It was all happening very much in real time. It was kind of crazy.
It's like, why are there stormtroopers in this thing?
Right. All of a sudden,
wrong movie.
Confused.
Sorry.
I know.
Okay, give me a minute.
Well, I was
Separate.
hoping I could get some like info, some like secret info out of what was happening on that set, but he's way too good about keeping secrets. I didn't get anything.
Going back to the set, are there any hidden Easter eggs in the set to look for? Is there like a photo of something from the Bad Robot universe, or maybe Star Wars, or something personal of yours?
There's a lot of that stuff, but for me, I honestly wasn't really aware of it when we were shooting.
Is the Scott Pilgrim comic book laying down on a magazine stack somewhere down there?
I think most of the things that are in there are things from the JJ world that you'll certainly be able to pick out on numerous viewings of the movie, but those are things that I'm still like learning about.
A VHS copy of Super 8?
Right.
Yeah.
Thing, you'll have to wait and see, but there's some things in there to keep an eye out for.
Did you take anything when the movie was done? Was there anything kind of cool that you're like, I kind of want that shawl that's sitting on the chair over there or something like that?
Yeah, well, there's something, I won't give it away, but there's something towards the end of the movie that I wear that I really wanted to keep, but by like the 10th day wearing it or whatever, it was so uncomfortable, and so I kind of got rid of that idea, but that'll make sense when people see the movie.
Could have just got a mannequin,
right?
Like the guys who play superhero characters.
That's true.
They always get one version of their outfit, and they have a mannequin in their house that wears the costume.
It also had a very intense smell.
Oh, yeah, then maybe you don't want that in your house.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you wore it, the more it was sort of like, it was very strange. It was, if I could say more about it, I would. But yeah, it's a very strange thing.
Did you see the original Cloverfield?
I did.
What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I saw it in the theaters. I was totally pumped for it.
Didn't have that complaint. I didn't have this complaint, but a lot of people have the complaint of the shaky cam thing. And I thought that was just nitpicking.
Yeah. I mean, also, I can see how now, because since that movie's come out, there's been so many more movies with the shaky cam. So you kind of get a little fatigue of just seeing so many of those movies. But at the time, I hadn't really seen anything like it that combined that sensibility with this big action monster movie. I mean, it was such a smart, clever idea. And it really made it feel so fresh and like young and cool and exciting. And it was totally something that I thought, I would love to be a part of something like that.
For the most part, I love the fact, especially in the promotions and the trailers leading up to the original Cloverfield release, that you never saw the monster.
Right.
And even through most of the movie, you didn't see it either. You saw little, I guess, tentacles, or maybe what have been a claw, something like that.
Yeah.
And the little things that were falling off of it. You didn't really see too much of the monster. And I think that made it worse, more terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
Than like a Godzilla movie where you're waiting for Godzilla, you see Godzilla, and then you want to see Godzilla just run through and trash everything.
Well, then you're relying on like that, whatever design of the monster, that better be terrifying, or else, the whole movie is sort of screwed, because that's all you're really relying on. But when you're building something that's much more about what's happening around it, I think it's so much more exciting for the audience to make you feel like it's really real, because you don't have them nitpicking and going, I don't know if that looks quite real or not. You're just really feeling it inside.
There was so much speculation for years that if they were to do a sequel to Cloverfield, again, 10 Cloverfield Lane, not really a sequel, but it has the essence of Cloverfield. If they were to do a sequel of the original Cloverfield, a lot of people thought that it was going to be the scene where TJ Miller's on the Brooklyn Bridge with his camcorder, runs into another guy with his camcorder, and it was going to be his footage from his side of the story.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it was like, well, what if another creature dropped in Los Angeles or another part of the world, and you show you what happened over there. And then to go into this route, again, blindsided everybody, but I think people who were fans of the original movie, or just those kind of suspense, I don't even say horror, but suspense, terror, monster kind of movies will enjoy what they're going to see here in 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Absolutely. I think it is, it's like taking the idea of a sequel and sort of just going, let's actually go over here, you know? It's just kind of going in another lane, so to speak, to use a bit of the title. But yeah, it's not a sequel in a literal way, but it feels like it in, we've been saying the word spiritual a lot, but that's what makes the most sense to me.
So there's no characters walking around like, man, this feels like Cloverfield. Taking you out of the whole story here. It's like, why did they put that line in there?
That would be funny if like our characers had seen the movie and were like, is this Cloverfield or something?
And it turns out that John Goodman is just a huge Cloverfield fan. Like there was an extra door. He's got the toy that nobody owned, and the posters and stuff. And, maybe Lizzie Kaplan's tied up.
Totally. Hey, maybe that's what happens, you know?
John Goodman, what was it like working with him?
Incredible. He's just such a sweetheart and such a brilliant actor and so committed.
I always wanted to meet him.
He's the best. I mean, he's so funny in like such a way that you kind of don't expect because he's a little bit quiet and especially on set, like he's very focused. But as soon as like somebody would bring up something, you know, that he could have like a little jab with,
right.
he was so quick with a joke and with a line that you just go, oh my God, where did that come from? That was hilarious.
I always felt he was the closest that we had to a modern day Jackie Gleason.
Totally.
You know, the big loud guy who was very funny, had the heart of gold, could be a sweetheart too. And I say dangerous in a nice way, but very dangerous when he was doing serious acting.
Oh, yeah.
Like you saw him on Roseanne and he killed, you know, as being Dan. And of course, Big Lebowski, where he was serious, but it was in a funny role. Arachnophobia, you know, creepy movie, but still a funny role. Of course, one of my favorites, nobody likes it, King Ralph. I loved him as King Ralph. But when you see him in more of the serious roles, you're like, that guy can do everything.
He can do anything. And I think when I was a kid watching him, because I think my first introduction to him was probably Roseanne, and so I don't think I realized that he was such a seasoned. He comes from the theater, like serious.
He took
acting.
over for the Blues Brothers. For a while with Jim Belushi.
Yeah, I mean he's got that kind of like skill and training that just goes to that level where he can do anything on a dime, like anything you ask him to do, anything character you ask him to play, emotion that he needs to play. You know, it's all just like built into him. He can do anything. And that's just like, he's like one of our best actors of all time. I really think he is.
Does he feel like a dad? Like he seems like one of those guys where even though you're an actor, he's an actor, and you're in a movie together, and you know you're on the same level professionally, and get to know him as a person. He just feels like he would be a dad, like a father figure. Yeah,
there's something about his voice too that's just like this like comforting but authoritative, you know, kind of thing that.
Well, he was Fred Flintstone.
And he was Fred Flintstone. And you know, when you grow up with somebody, like hearing somebody's voice for so many years, I think it does become like they're like a family member in your head. So it was weird kind of doing scenes with him in the beginning and having him like speak to me and looking at him and being like, this is John Goodman, but he's so scary. Like it was confusing, you know, to my brain for a minute because I want to love him. I'm programmed to love him from seeing him in so many things where he's so fantastic. So it took a little while to kind of get used to the fact that my character is supposed to be so scared of this guy.
Right. And you just keep thinking, it's like, I want to give this guy a hug.
Exactly. I know. He's so huggable. He's the best.
The movie is 10 Cloverfield Lane. It is out today. Running out of time with you, but I want to ask you two other non-movie questions. Okay. One, I saw on your Instagram that you're doing the aerial fitness in Los Angeles.
Yes.
How terrifying is that to start? Because it looks like you have to be really or build up some kind of coordination for it. It looks like it would take me forever just to try to pull myself up.
I know. It's so much harder than it looks. I think that's what really struck me. And so much more painful because it looks so kind of effortless and like, oh, you're just floating around on ribbons and so pretty. But it's like cutting into your skin. I get so many bruises.
I'm sure.
Like,
do you have to chalk up like you would gymnastics
I've
or
done
something?
some of those classes that are more like circus based. And like you do trapeze and like all that. And you have to wear chalk and stuff for that. But it's so much fun. And it's so much more fun than going to the gym. So that's why I love it.
It looks it, but I've seen a lot of that, and it's just like I can't do that.
Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. But once you get the hang of it, like I think once I did it for about a month, my body started to get a little bit more used to it, and things started coming a lot more easily. And you kind of have to stick with it for a little while to train your body, kind of to know what to do.
Last question for you. It's a pretty well known story that you passed up the role on Cinderella Story. Which went to Hilary Duff.
It was not the Hilary Duff role.
Oh, it wasn't her role?
No, she was already playing that role. It was a smaller role.
Okay, well, you still passed up the movie, and you wound up going on a cruise.
Yes.
And you don't regret that decision because you met your husband on the cruise. Have you been on a cruise since? Do you like going on cruises?
You know, we always talked about wanting to go on another cruise because we loved it so much and we met each other on a cruise. And so for years we talked about, we need to do that again. And now I think we've like passed that point where now we're like, I don't know if we want to go on another cruise. I think we just like now
rather just go to a resort.
Rather just go to a resort and not be stuck on a boat somewhere with tons of strangers. But as as an 18-year-old, it was like, this is so exciting. All these people you can meet and talk to, and that's sort of how we met.
Well, let me tell you, as a 37-year-old, I still enjoy going on cruises.
Do you?
Yeah, and I was excited. I'm like, somebody else. Because anytime I ask somebody to go, they're like, I really don't want to do that. And I find them so much fun.
It is.
But I get the whole thing about a resort being seclusive and everything's taken care of for you, and you can just relax without a million people around you.
And you can leave when you want. The thing about the cruises, you're kind of
You can leave if you want to. You just wind up in the water.
Exactly.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. It's M_E_Winstead on Twitter. I'm guessing
correct.
Somebody had every form of your name, so that's what you were you left with. M.E. Wins on Instagram and Mary E. Winstead on Facebook. 10 Cloverfield Lane. Sorry, not Cloverfield. 10 Cloverfield Lane out tonight nationwide. Go see it. I'm guessing it's going to be #1 this week.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.